You can learn a lot from trying to save the world or destroy it. Or, since it's America's 250th anniversary, taking on the most powerful empire in the world when you're just a bunch of colonies that have no unity, no connection, and see each other mostly as strangers. Fantasy can be, and that fantasy can teach you a lot about how to run a successful business, provided you do it correctly. That's where live action role playing games or LARPs come in. You don't just learn about leadership, teamwork, decision making under pressure, you live it, you experience it, and you learn from it. You could be a character at the Continental Congress, meeting in a tavern in Philadelphia. But let me give you a little different scenario, more recent. You're in a room, maybe a large auditorium, with senior leaders, smart people, confident people, and alerts start coming in. A flight just landed. Passengers are getting sick. There were no symptoms before landing, but now something is spreading. People's phones are buzzing. There are conflicting reports coming in. No one has the full picture. One person says we need to shut down travel. Someone else says that will destroy the economy. Another person says, wait for more data. And yet another person jumps in saying, no, if we wait, it'll be too late. And now everyone is looking at you. What do you do? Because what you just saw, that scenario, is exactly what happens inside organizations every single day. Not the virus most of the time, but the decision part of it. Incomplete information, conflicting incentives, pressure, time is running out. And here's the problem. We almost never train for that. Now, that scenario I just described, it wasn't real. It was a LARP, a live action role playing game, a live immersive scenario that I designed and ran long before COVID ever showed up. But it doesn't have to be a LARP about a virus. It could be a LARP about being in the American Revolution 250 years ago, about trying to negotiate with people who you barely know, with people who have their own interests at stake and don't yet see the country as a unified country. Because back in 1775, there were not a unified United States. There weren't even unified colonies. There were 13 separate colonies that all had their own agendas, their own beliefs, their own values. But the behavior that we see when we do these simulations, those are completely real. And this is where things get interesting, because LARP doesn't just stand for live action role playing. It also describes exactly what people walk away with when they participate in one of these. Every single time, LARP gives you leadership, alignment, role, perspective, and strategy. Think about that. Leadership. Who steps up when it matters? Not who has the title, but who steps up. Alignment, where people are pulling together and where they're quietly working against each other, where they're in sync and where they're acting at cross purposes, not because they intend to, but because they haven't trained to work together. Role. Who understands what they're responsible for and who doesn't? Who jumps in at the wrong place and the wrong time and gets in the way? Perspective. Who sees the whole system and who's trapped in their silo? And finally, strategy. What actually works once reality gets a vote? Because effective strategy is always changing, always responding to what is happening. If you don't have strong leadership, if you have poor alignment, misunderstood roles, and a lack of perspective, then what you get is bad strategy. Strategy that fails when things don't go as expected. Strategy that tries to do too much with too few resources. Strategy that tries to do everything instead of focusing on what matters. And you can't fake any of that in a simulation like this, in a LARP. It shows up fast. In one session, everything was completely under control until the first person died in the simulation. You could feel the room change. It became real, even though all that had happened was this person was now going to have to spend the next couple of hours sitting and watching instead of participating. But that was all it took. They had died in the simulation. Tension spiked. The decisions got sharper and more difficult. People stopped talking about what they would do in theory. They started making real trade-offs instead. And that's when learning happens. Because in your organization, those moments are real. But the first time your team experiences them should not be when the stakes are real. Because here's the truth. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of practice. You know, there's a great line in Doctor Who, in The Five Doctors, where Sarah Jane Smith says to the third doctor, "What will we do when we get there?" And he says, "What I always do, Sarah Jane, improvise." And that's great when you've got a script and you're the doctor and you're an semi-immortal, super intelligent alien. But for the rest of us, under pressure, we don't improvise that well unless we've practiced, unless we've trained, unless we've prepared ourselves in advance. Most companies try to teach leadership separately. They try to fix alignment by itself. They talk about strategy in PowerPoint decks. But in reality, it all happens at once, under pressure, inside a system. LARP lets you rehearse that system. It lets your team experience the hard moments before they happen. So when they do, you've been there. You know what it feels like. Because LARP isn't just something you do, it's what you get. Leadership, alignment, role, perspective, strategy. And once you've seen those clearly, you can finally start to change them. Because if you want your team to perform differently under pressure, you have to give them a chance to practice differently. That's the LARP effect. The LARP effect is about building optimistic, resilient, high-performing organizations by intentionally designing the stories people live at work. It's about competitive advantage forged through shared experience, and it's about leadership practiced, not preached. Business is already a game. It's time to play it with purpose. The LARP effect tells you how. You can find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and anywhere books are sold. In addition to the LARP effect, I'm the author of 2 other books on organizational development and leadership. I speak on leadership and strategy, and I run LARPs for businesses that are seeking to dramatically improve employee engagement and organizational performance. You can find more about me and my coaching and consulting services at my website, www.7stepsahead.com. You can reach me at steve@7stepsahead.com or by phone at 978-298-5189. And I will pop that information up in about 1 second.
Fantastic. Wow, that was amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, you have to stop sharing, but that's your information. Yes.
Okay. Everyone had a chance to grab that?
Okay. Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much. Everybody, please give him applaud. Yeah. So we beat the hacker. So we improvised. So that was good. So I'll put that in my footnote next time. If we get hacked, please come back. We'll give you a new Zoom link. Yeah. So that was a good idea. Well, thank you all. Resistance, and we learned a lot with Juneteenth as well. And we hope you come back. And I will make appointments with all of you next week. So the homework for this week, let me stop recording.